The day Earth's skies changed started like any other. Blue turned to purple as three massive ships, each glowing with soft blue light, descended through the clouds above New York. The world held its breath, and for once, every TV channel showed the same image. The military scrambled their jets, but the alien ships made no hostile moves. Instead, they broadcasted a simple message in perfect English. "We come in peace. We are the Lumini. We seek audience with Earth's leaders." Inside the United Nations emergency chamber, General Thompson stood at the window, watching the largest ship hover above the East River. Its surface rippled like water in moonlight. "They could have attacked without warning," he said to the room of nervous leaders. The fact that they didn't mean something. President Rogers nodded from her seat at the main table. "Agreed. We accept their request for a meeting, but with full security measures in place." The first meeting was set for noon in Central Park's Great Lawn. As the world watched through countless cameras, a beam of light touched the ground, and three figures stepped out. The Lumini were beautiful in an alien way. Tall, slender beings whose skin gave off a soft, pulsing glow like gentle starlight. But what happened next confused everyone. The lead alien, who called himself Ambassador Ray, immediately dropped to his knees before the human delegation. The other two Lumini did the same. Ray's skin flashed with patterns of blue and gold as he spoke. "We are honored to meet the survivors of Earth," he said, his voice musical and strange. "Your world, it is beyond our comprehension. We offer tribute to your strength." The human delegation exchanged puzzled looks. Dr. Brown, Earth's leading xenobiologist, stepped forward. "Ambassador, please rise. There's no need for such formality." But Ray remained kneeling. "You do not understand. It is our custom, our law. We must show proper respect to those who have mastered worlds more challenging than our own." President Rogers cleared her throat. "Mastered. Ambassador, I'm afraid we don't follow." The Lumini's skin rippled with new patterns as he explained. "Your world, Earth, it is what we call a death world. The gravity alone would crush my people. Your oxygen levels would poison us. Your weather patterns." He paused, his glow dimming slightly. "Yesterday, we watched in awe as your people continued their daily lives through something you call a thunderstorm. Such violence from the sky, yet your children played in it." The humans shared surprised looks. To them, a spring thunderstorm was nothing special. Ray continued, "And your planet's history of predators. Our scientists studied your fossil records. Creatures like your tigers and wolves would have ended any civilization on our world. Yet your ancestors survived them, hunted them, and some of you even keep their descendants as pets." Dr. Brown couldn't help but smile. Her own cat was napping at home right now. "This is why we must worship," Ray explained, producing a crystal sphere that glowed with swirling colors. "This contains star metal from our home system, a gift to honor your species' strength." General Thompson whispered to President Rogers, "They're afraid of us, not because of our weapons or technology, but because we survived this world." Rogers nodded slowly, beginning to understand. Earth, their home, the world they often took for granted, was apparently a nightmare realm to these advanced aliens. Every human child who had ever scraped their knee and gotten back up, every farmer who had weathered a storm, every city that had rebuilt after an earthquake, all of these were testament to humanity's incredible resilience. As more gifts were presented and more elaborate ceremonies performed, news spread across Earth. Humans everywhere looked around their world with new eyes. The rain that fell outside wasn't just weather, it was acid to the Lumini. The gravity they never thought about would crush their new allies. Even the act of walking barefoot on grass, dealing with Earth's countless microorganisms, was seen as an act of incredible bravery by the visitors. That evening, as the Lumini ships glowed softly in the night sky, humanity went to bed with a new understanding of themselves. They weren't just an emerging spacefaring species. They were the ones that other species feared, not for their weapons or their technology, but for something far more fundamental. They were the ones who had thrived in conditions that would kill most intelligent life in the galaxy. And this was just the beginning. 2 weeks after first contact, the United Nations hosted the first official cultural exchange meeting. Inside a large conference room, screens displayed images from both Earth and the Lumini homeworld, Lumara. The difference was striking. Lumara looked like a paradise, with gentle pink skies and soft, rolling hills. No large predators, no extreme weather, and gravity only half that of Earth's. Professor Miller, a human anthropologist, sat across from Ambassador Ray, watching the Lumini's skin pulse with gentle colors as they talked. "I must ask," Miller said, "why do your people insist on these ceremonies before any major interaction with us?" Ray's glow shifted to a deep blue. "It is not just ceremony, Professor. It is galactic law, established 50,000 years ago. Before any species can engage in conflict with another, they must first acknowledge if that species comes from a more challenging world." Conflict. General Thompson interrupted from his seat nearby. "We thought this was about peaceful contact." "Peace is our goal." Ray's patterns flickered anxiously. "But the galaxy is vast and not always kind. This law exists to protect both sides. Let me show you something." Ray waved his hand, and the screens changed to show a star map. Hundreds of worlds lit up, each colored differently. The green worlds, like our Lumara, are gentle. Blue worlds are moderate. The red ones, he pointed to Earth, glowing angry red among the stars. These are death worlds. The humans in the room leaned forward, fascinated. "Only 12 known species have evolved on death worlds," Ray continued. "Most intelligent life appears on gentler planets. But death world species," his glow pulsed with respect and fear. "You are different. Your bodies and minds are forged by constant challenge. What you consider normal would kill most species in the galaxy." Professor Miller took notes rapidly. "But why the worship? Why not just acknowledge the difference?" "Because," Ray's voice became softer, 50,000 years ago, a gentle world species attacked a death world species without understanding what that meant. They were completely destroyed, not by weapons, but by the sheer resilience and adaptability of their opponents. The survivors established this law: worship first, so you never forget what you're dealing with. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Brown spoke up. "You mean every spacefaring race has to perform these rituals before they can fight us, even if they're hostile?" "Yes," Ray confirmed. "It is encoded in the deepest laws of every known civilization. To break this law is to be outcast from all galactic society." His skin rippled with darker colors. "But there is something you should know. We didn't come just for peaceful exchange. We came to warn you." General Thompson straightened in his chair. "Warn us about what?" "The Ravagers," Ray said, bringing up a new image, crystalline ships sharp as knives. "They are coming this way. They have conquered many worlds, and Earth lies in their path. They will have to perform the ritual first. But after that," his glow dimmed significantly. President Rogers, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "How long do we have?" 3 months, maybe 4, Ray answered. "They will perform the ritual because they must, but they have never faced a death world species before. They don't truly understand what it means." Professor Miller looked thoughtful. "So they'll underestimate us, even after the ritual?" "Most likely." Ray's colors showed agreement. "They believe the ritual is just tradition. They have forgotten its true purpose as a warning." The humans exchanged knowing looks. Earth's history was full of those who had underestimated the seemingly weaker opponent. "Then we have work to do." President Rogers stood up. "Ambassador Ray will need to know everything about these Ravagers." And she smiled slightly. "Perhaps it's time to show them exactly why death world species are to be respected, not just worshipped." As the meeting continued into the night, plans were made and strategies discussed. But one thing was clear: Humanity was about to show the galaxy why evolution on Earth had produced something unique. A species that didn't just survive adversity, but thrived on it. The real test was coming. The mood in the Pentagon's war room was tense. Satellite screens showed the first images of the Ravager fleet emerging from deep space. 7 massive ships, their crystalline surfaces reflecting starlight like giant shards of glass. They had just passed Jupiter's orbit and were heading straight for Earth. General Thompson studied the readings with Ambassador Ray at his side. The Lumini's usual gentle glow had turned a nervous gray. "Their ships are bigger than we expected," Thompson said, keeping his voice steady. "Size isn't everything." Admiral West replied from across the room. She pointed to a different screen showing Earth's combined fleet, a mix of human and Lumini vessels. "We've spent the last 2 months preparing. Every ship is ready." Ray's skin flickered with concern. The Ravagers have never lost a battle. Their crystal technology can cut through most ships like paper. "Most ships," Professor Miller spoke up from his station, "but not ships built by people who grew up expecting things to try to kill them." He brought up images of Earth's newest weapons, designs that had made even the Lumini step back in surprise. The room's main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. A face appeared, if you could call it a face. The Ravager commander looked like a being carved from living crystal, with sharp edges and glowing red energy at its core. "I am Supreme Commander Stone of the Ravager Empire," the crystalline being announced. "We have come to claim this sector." President Rogers stepped forward, her expression calm. "We are aware of your intentions, Commander Stone. We are also aware of the galactic law regarding Death World species." The crystal face showed what might have been amusement. "Yes, the old ritual. We will comply, of course. It is a mere formality." "Is it?" Rogers asked quietly. She nodded to Ray, who stepped forward. The Lumini's skin blazed with formal patterns as he spoke. "Supreme Commander Stone, I witness that you understand the meaning of challenging a Death World species. Do you accept the responsibility?" "We accept," Stone said dismissively. "We will perform the ritual tomorrow at your moon. Prepare your leaders." After the transmission ended, the room burst into activity. "They're not taking it seriously," Ray said, his glow dimming. "Just like we feared." "Good." Admiral West smiled. She pulled up more images, showing Earth's cities being fortified, civilians practicing emergency drills, and military units running exercises in every type of terrain imaginable. "Let them underestimate us. We're used to that." In the following days, Earth's preparations intensified. While the Ravagers prepared for their ritual, humanity showed why Death World species were different. In the Amazon, special forces trained to fight in conditions that would kill most aliens. In the Sahara, tank divisions practiced maneuvers in heat that would melt Lumini technology. Under the Pacific, submarines ran silent drills that made even the Ravagers' advanced sensors useless. At a refugee camp in Canada, Dr. Brown watched children playing in the snow, building forts, and having snowball fights. A group of Lumini observers stood nearby, their glow flickering with amazement. "They play in frozen water," one Lumini whispered. "Their bodies adapt to temperature changes that would shatter our forms, and they laugh while doing it." Dr. Brown smiled. "That's what the Ravagers don't understand yet. We don't just survive hard conditions. We turn them into games. We take deadly situations and make them into sports. We look at impossible challenges and say, why not?" The next day, as Earth's leaders prepared to receive the Ravagers' ritual worship, a message spread through every human settlement, from the highest space station to the deepest bunker. "Remember who we are. Remember what made us strong. We are Earth's children, and soon the galaxy will understand what that truly means." The coming storm would test humanity like never before. But as Professor Miller noted in his journal that evening, perhaps the greatest advantage we have is that our opponents believe they are coming to conquer a Death World species. They don't realize that we are not just survivors of a Death World. We are its masters. The stage was set. The ritual awaited, and humanity was ready to teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating the species that called Earth home. The ritual was set to take place on the Moon's Sea of Tranquility, near the historic site of humanity's first lunar landing. A temporary dome had been erected, filled with breathable air for all species present. The crystalline ships of the Ravagers cast long shadows across the lunar surface, their sharp edges looking even more menacing up close. Inside the dome, Earth's delegation stood ready. President Rogers, General Thompson, and Professor Miller represented humanity, while Ambassador Ray and 2 other Lumini stood as official witnesses. The dome's clear walls showed Earth hanging in the black sky, a blue jewel that had produced something the galaxy both feared and respected. Commander Stone entered with 4 other Ravagers. Their crystal bodies caught the light, sending rainbow reflections across the dome's interior. Each step they took made a sharp clicking sound against the floor. "Let us complete this outdated ceremony quickly," Stone said, his core pulsing with red energy. "We have worlds to conquer." Ambassador Ray stepped forward, his skin glowing with formal patterns. The ritual has 3 parts. First, the acknowledgement. Then, the tribute. Finally, the submission. These cannot be rushed. Stone's crystal face showed no emotion, but his voice carried annoyance. "Very well. Begin." Ray raised his hands, and his glow brightened. "Supreme Commander Stone, do you acknowledge that you face a Death World species? Do you understand that these humans have survived conditions that would destroy your kind?" "We acknowledge this," Stone replied flatly. "Speak the words," Ray insisted, his patterns becoming more intense. "Speak of what you have learned about their world." Stone's crystal form seemed to stiffen. "We acknowledge that Earth has gravity that would crack our crystal forms. We acknowledge that their world has weather that would shatter us, temperatures that would freeze or melt us, and predators that would break us." He paused, then added reluctantly, "We acknowledge that they are stronger than they appear." Professor Miller watched carefully, taking notes. This was the first time humans had seen this ritual from the receiving end. "The tribute," Ray announced. Stone gestured, and his officers brought forward 3 crystal containers. "We offer the heart crystal of a dead star," he said, opening the first container. Inside, a pulsing light danced with incredible energy. "We offer the memory crystals of 1,000 worlds." The second container revealed what looked like diamonds filled with swirling colors. "And we offer the key crystals to 10 Ravager warships." The final container held sharp, red crystals that hummed with power. President Rogers accepted each tribute with a simple nod, though General Thompson's eyes widened at the mention of warship keys. "And now," Ray said solemnly, "the submission." This was clearly the part Stone hated most. The massive crystal being moved forward, and with a sound like grinding glass, knelt before the human delegation. His officers did the same. "We submit," Stone said, his voice tight with suppressed anger, "to the authority of Earth's strength. We acknowledge that you are our superiors in survival. We ask permission to proceed with our conflict." President Rogers stepped forward. Her voice was calm but carried across the dome clearly. "We accept your worship, Commander Stone. You may begin your conflict in 30 days, as galactic law requires." Stone rose quickly, crystal fragments tinkling to the floor. 30 days, then. Use them wisely." He turned to leave but paused. "You received our worship, but do not expect it to save you." After the Ravagers left, Dr. Brown, who had been watching through a video feed from Earth, sent a message to the dome. "Did you notice? During the submission, his crystal body was actually trembling. Not from fear of us, from fear of the ritual itself. They really are bound by these laws." General Thompson picked up one of the key crystals, studying its red glow. "They gave us control of 10 of their ships, just for a ritual they think is meaningless. Their arrogance will be their downfall." President Rogers watched the Ravager ships through the dome's wall. They performed the ritual but didn't understand its warning. In 30 days, they'll learn why their ancestors created this law in the first place. As Earth's delegation prepared to return home, Ambassador Ray's glow showed a pattern that the humans had learned meant deep concern. They completed the ritual perfectly, he said, but they missed its deepest meaning. It was never about worship. It was about warning them what they're about to face. The 30-day clock was ticking. Humanity had watched and learned during the ritual. Now it was time to show the Ravagers why Death World species were worthy of more than just ceremonial respect. The real lesson was about to begin. During the mandatory 30-day waiting period, Earth's military leaders decided to show their enemies exactly what they were facing, not through threats or displays of advanced weapons, but through demonstrations of humanity's everyday resilience. The first demonstration took place in Death Valley. Commander Stone and his officers stood watching, their crystal forms shimmering in the intense heat, as human soldiers ran combat drills in full gear. The temperature here would shatter a Ravager in hours, Ambassador Ray explained, his glow carefully regulated against the heat, yet they train in it daily. Stone's red core pulsed, impressive, but meaningless. Battles are fought in space, not in your deadly wastelands. Admiral West smiled. That's what you think. She pointed to the soldiers. Every person you see here grew up learning to adapt, to survive, to thrive in conditions that you call impossible, and we're taking those skills to space. The next demonstration was in Alaska. The Ravagers watched as human ships navigated through a raging blizzard, performing complex maneuvers in conditions that would freeze their crystal ships solid. Our ships would become brittle in these temperatures, one of Stone's officers observed quietly. That's why we built our new fleet to handle any condition, General Thompson explained. When you grow up on a death world, you learn to prepare for everything. The demonstrations continued around the globe. In the Amazon, special forces moved through terrain that would trap and shatter crystal bodies. In the ocean depths, submarines operated at pressures that would crush Ravager ships instantly. Even civilian demonstrations proved enlightening. Children playing sports, construction workers building in extreme conditions, farmers working through storms. At the United Nations, Professor Miller showed videos of Earth's history. This is how we handled our world wars, he explained to the watching Ravagers. This is how we rebuilt after natural disasters. This is how we turned deadly challenges into opportunities for growth. Stone watched the footage, his crystal form reflecting the images of human resilience. You show us these things to intimidate us. No, President Rogers replied. We show you these things so you understand why the ritual exists. It's not about worship, it's about warning. 20 days into the waiting period, humanity revealed their new space fleet. The ships weren't the largest or the most elegant, but they were built by people who understood survival. Each vessel could operate in conditions that would destroy most alien craft. The designs incorporated lessons learned from millennia of adapting to Earth's challenges. Your ships lack the purity of crystal technology, Stone observed during the fleet review. Admiral West ran her hand along the hull of humanity's new flagship. Crystal is beautiful, Commander, but steel bends before it breaks. That's how we survive. By adapting, not by staying rigid. In the final days before the conflict, Dr. Brown organized a unique demonstration. She brought the Ravager leaders to a human hospital. Watch how we heal, she said, showing them medical procedures. On your world, a broken crystal cannot be repaired, but human bodies rebuild themselves. We grow stronger from damage. Every injury teaches us something new. Stone's core flickered with what might have been concern. You are not what we expected. That's the point of the ritual, Ambassador Ray said, his glow pattern showing deep understanding. To make you stop and look closely at what you face. My people learned this lesson long ago. Death World species are different. They don't just endure challenges, they learn from them. They grow stronger because of them. On the last night of the waiting period, President Rogers addressed the world. Tomorrow, we face our first interstellar conflict. The enemy has followed their rituals and given their worship, but they still don't truly understand what it means to challenge a species that calls Earth home. Tomorrow, we will teach them. As humans across the planet and in space prepared for battle, Ambassador Ray recorded one final observation in his report. The Ravagers completed the ritual of worship, but missed its message. They see humans as creatures who survived a harsh world. They don't understand that humans are creatures who conquered a harsh world. Tomorrow, they will learn the difference. The 30 days were up. The time for demonstrations was over. Now it was time for action. The battle began at dawn. The Ravager fleet, their crystal ships gleaming in the sunlight, moved into attack formation near Mars. Commander Stone's voice echoed through all channels. Ritual or not, your world will fall. Admiral West stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship, Resilience, watching the enemy approach. The ship's name was painted in both human languages and galactic standard. All ships, battle formations, she ordered. Remember your training. Remember Earth. The Ravagers struck first. Their crystal ships fired beams of concentrated energy that could slice through normal hulls like paper. But humanity had spent 30 days preparing for exactly this moment. Evasive maneuvers, West commanded. The human fleet moved in ways that seemed impossible for ships their size. Like boxers dodging punches, the Earth vessels weaved and rolled, using techniques developed from centuries of dealing with hurricanes and tornadoes. Impossible. Stone's voice crackled over the comm. No ships can move like that. Death World ships can, West replied calmly. Now watch what else we can do. The human fleet split into smaller groups, using tactics that confused the Ravager battle computers. Where the crystal ships moved in perfect, rigid formations, the Earth ships flowed like water, adapted like living things. They fought like creatures that had evolved on a world where survival meant never staying still. In the war room back on Earth, General Thompson watched the battle displays with Ambassador Ray. The Lumini's skin pulsed with amazement as human ships performed maneuvers his people had thought impossible. They're using the asteroid belt, Ray observed, but those rocks would shatter any ship. Thompson smiled. Not ships built by people who grew up with earthquakes and avalanches. We don't just avoid obstacles. We use them. The battle spread across the solar system. The Ravagers found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they'd fought before. When they tried to trap human ships against Jupiter's gravity, they discovered that humans had trained in gravity wells far more dangerous. When they attempted to use solar radiation as a weapon, they learned that Earth ships were built to withstand radiation that would kill most species. Target their command ship, Stone ordered in frustration. His crystal fleet launched their most powerful attack yet. But Admiral West was ready. Now, she commanded. The human fleet executed a maneuver that looked like chaos, but was actually perfectly planned. Years of dealing with Earth's unpredictable weather had taught humans how to turn disorder into advantage. The Ravager attack missed completely. And in that moment of confusion, humanity struck back. Launch the boarding parties, West ordered. Special forces teams, trained in Earth's most extreme environments, breached the crystal ships. They moved through the alien corridors like Earth's predators. Adaptable, relentless, impossible to stop. The Ravagers, used to fighting rigid battles with clear rules, found themselves facing soldiers who had evolved from hunters. Stone watched in disbelief as human forces took control of ship after ship. This isn't how space combat works. He protested over the comm. Maybe not where you come from, West replied. But we're Death Worlders. We change the rules. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. In the end, 5 of the 7 Ravager ships were captured, their crystal crews trapped in their own vessels. Only Stone's command ship and 1 other remained free. Do you understand now? Admiral West asked as the human fleet surrounded the remaining Ravager ships. This is why your ancestors created the worship ritual, not to honor us, but to warn you. Death World species don't just survive. We learn, we adapt, we overcome. Stone's crystal form seemed to dim as he realized the truth. His mighty fleet, undefeated until now, had been outmaneuvered by creatures he had dismissed as primitive. The ritual hadn't been an empty tradition. It had been trying to tell him something crucial about the nature of his opponents. As the sun rose on Earth, news of humanity's first space victory spread across the planet. But as Ambassador Ray noted in his report, this isn't just a victory in battle. This is proof of why Death World species are feared and respected across the galaxy. They don't just win fights. They change how fights work. The battle was over, but its lesson would echo through the galaxy forever. 1 month after the battle, representatives from across the galaxy gathered at the United Nations. The Great Hall was filled with beings from 50 different worlds, all coming to witness something unprecedented: the formal surrender of the Ravager Empire to a Death World species. Commander Stone stood before the assembly, his crystal form less bright than before. The defeat had changed him. Behind him, the remaining Ravager leaders waited, their once proud forms now humble. "We broke a law older than our civilization," Stone began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "Not the law of the ritual. We performed that. But we broke its spirit. We treated as ceremony what should have been studied as warning." President Rogers sat with Earth's delegation, Ambassador Ray glowing softly beside her. In the month since the battle, much had changed. The Ravagers had discovered that surrender to humans was different from surrender to other species. "When we lost the battle," Stone continued, "we expected extinction. That is what we would have done to you. Instead, you showed us something we had never seen before: adaptation." Professor Miller stepped forward with a data crystal. On the huge screens above, images appeared showing what had happened after the battle. Humans helping repair damaged Ravager ships, engineers finding ways to strengthen crystal technology against extreme conditions, doctors developing new methods to heal damaged crystal forms. "You didn't just defeat us," Stone said, his core pulsing with new understanding. "You taught us, like your own world taught you." Dr. Brown stood next to a young Ravager scientist, their unlikely friendship a symbol of the changes taking place. "The crystal forms of the Ravagers can be strengthened," she explained to the assembly. "Like us, they can learn to adapt. They just needed teachers who understood survival." The screen showed more images, Ravager ships now modified with Earth-inspired designs, crystal beings learning to withstand stronger gravitational forces, new hybrid technologies that combined crystal precision with human adaptability. "Today," Stone announced, "we do not just surrender. We ask to join Earth's alliance. Not as conquered subjects, but as students. We want to learn what our ancestors tried to tell us through the ritual. We want to understand what it truly means to grow stronger through adversity." Admiral West, who had led the fleet to victory, nodded in approval. The Ravagers were learning what humans had always known: true strength comes from overcoming challenges, not avoiding them. President Rogers stood to address the assembly. "Earth accepts the Ravagers not as defeated enemies, but as new allies. We will teach what our harsh world taught us: that adaptation is survival, that challenges make us stronger, and that working together lets us overcome any obstacle." Ambassador Ray's skin rippled with patterns of joy and amazement. "In all galactic history," he said, "no Death World species has ever done this. You didn't just win a battle. You changed how an entire civilization thinks." The ceremony concluded with a new ritual, not one of worship, but of partnership. Stone and his people would stay on Earth, learning to adapt to stronger gravity and harsher conditions. Human scientists would work with Ravager crystal technology, finding ways to make it as adaptable as they were. As the galactic representatives left Earth, they carried with them a new understanding. The old ritual of worship had been created to warn against challenging Death World species, but humans had shown there was more to learn from Death Worlders than just fear. Professor Miller recorded the day's events in the new galactic archive. "Today marks a change in how the galaxy sees Death World species. We are not just survivors to be feared or warriors to be worshipped. We are teachers. Our harsh world taught us that growth comes from facing challenges, that strength comes from adaptation, and that even the most rigid crystal can learn to bend without breaking. The story of humanity's first contact with the galaxy had begun with aliens worshipping humans. It ended with something far more powerful, aliens understanding humans. And in that understanding, a new chapter of galactic history began. As Earth's night fell, Ambassador Ray made one final observation. The humans have taught us all something vital. It's not enough to worship those who mastered the impossible. We must learn from them. And perhaps in learning from them, we too can become stronger. The galaxy would never be the same.